Yeah. So yeah, what's going on, man? How is everything?
Things are great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I can't complain, right? I feel very blessed and grateful for, the life that I have,
Mm.
for my family and the ability to, spend time with them and be intentional with that time. I can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and obviously we had a conversation earlier, and I mean, you got a pretty incredible story. So I think when you're going through stuff like that, I mean, you can really just go either two ways, I guess. One, down a dark path, or two, you're just so grateful for where you're at, today. And
Mm.
it seems like you went that way. Um, But yeah, I mean, like I said, you have a pretty incredible story, man, and I definitely want my listeners to kind of, learn more about you.
Yeah. Where to begin, right? Uh, so I come from a family. We grew up in a family business, right? And so from zero, age to today, I've been around the business world. I've looked at, what culture should look like in organizations, what is healthy and what is not. We had a family business for, um, I think it was about 30 years, just shy of that when we sold it.
Mm.
And there was an immediate shift in the culture. And then a few years after that, we, as a family, exited the company and saw a lot of heartbreak to people that we cared about. And for me at the time, I took a step back and I said, how can I change things? How can I make a difference in the workplace? Right. So around that time, I had finished up a master's. My master's is in conflict and dispute resolution
Mm.
with a focus on organizational conflict, right? Because having grown up in a family business, for me, that was second nature, right? It
Right.
was, I didn't want to go down the path of international peace. I didn't want to go down, divorce, mediation, and things like that. That just wasn't where my passion was. And so it was really interesting right around that time. I had started the Hitz group, and I, from that point, was working on kind of conflict resolution in the workplace, getting with a mentor here locally and doing some mediation and things like that. And that was going pretty well. Excuse
Mm.
me.
Yeah.
Just learning, as I went, and and what was interesting is there was a shift in my family with what each one of us was doing after we sold. And I kind of went a little bit of the entrepreneurial route. I was a franchisee for a couple of years. My wife and I were, and I had a brother that went kind of the freelance route for marketing, and another brother that did a separate venture. We all kind of went different ways,
Yeah.
and but the shift in the culture had stayed with us, and it was interesting how that impacted us. And fast forward, we're all trying to kind of get our footing. We're just doing the best we can, living our lives. Um, and and there was, what I would say is, there was a little bit of a lack of light that we had had before, when we were running things ourselves. Um, and the way that we all exited was very cold in terms
Mm.
of the new owners, and it affected us for a long time.
Is that the
And
shift that you were talking about? Is that
yeah,
so? It was basically you
and
coming from was it like animosity with the people that bought the
uh,
group?
yeah, there's a little bit of animosity. There was a culture of, you're just a number, right? You're
Right. Right.
replaceable. You don't matter. What you bring to the table doesn't matter. It's, if you don't affect my pocketbook, um,
Yeah.
then I don't want you on my team.
Very, very
And
cold. Very
super cold.
yeah.
And that stuck with us for a long time, and it affected us in a lot of different ways. And my brother in particular, I've got two older brothers,
Mm.
and the one that's just above me, it he struggled for a long time, and kind of finding that footing again. And and had his own demons to battle with anxiety and depression. And what happened was, as he's trying to figure it all out, doing the best that he can, really, he got to a point where he didn't feel like he could take it anymore.
Mm.
So in August of 2020, we lost my brother to suicide, and my family, at the drop of a hat, all of us traveled across the country to where he was at, to you know help his wife kind of pick up the pieces, and we just rallied together, and it was hard, right? I mean, and at the time, my employer was, they had their standard policy of, here are your hours of bereavement that you can take, and if you
Right.
need more, and the whole concept of that to me is a bit archaic, um, having gone through that grief process,
Right. Right.
because it's different for everybody,
No, yeah,
right?
you don't put a number on it when you're supposed to be, oh, after this amount of days, you should be good, get back to work, do this, or, get back into
No,
everyday life, really, man. I mean, I've
yeah.
seen it, in my family, we talked about, I had a cousin who unfortunately did it, and you just see it, how it affects the family, and everyone, deals with it differently. And I think in grief in general, man, everyone just deals with it different. So, I mean, I'm definitely very sorry
Hmm.
to hear that. And, now you said he had his wife, did he have kids?
He did not have kids.
Okay.
It was him and his wife, and their dog,
Mm.
um, which was, like a best friend and a kid
Yeah,
to
yeah,
him.
yeah.
And 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 looking back, I'm super grateful for his dog, as it was, um, just a great companion during what clearly were dark times.
Right.
And as a family, we kind of took a step back, and we looked in, so what are we doing, right? How are we each living, and are we doing what we can to make the most of it? Are we being intentional with our time? Are we putting our family first? And so we all did kind of a self-evaluation. Were we giving ourselves the care that we needed, from a physical sense, from a spiritual sense, from that emotional, mental sense? And it's been interesting to see the different outlets, um, since, for everyone to build themselves up and kind of regain our own sense of self. And it's been incredible to see how we've each stepped up for each other.
Mm.
We can have a lot more of those harder conversations, and have healthy boundaries that say, look, that's not something that I can do right now, right?
Right.
Or to reach out and say, this is something that I do need right now. And those conversations make a huge difference, right?
Mm.
And some of that is kind of what, led me to be a little more interested in neuroscience, and understanding a bit more of the brain and that brain body connection. And then, um, for me, I've applied it to the workplace, right?
Right.
Looking at, um, that neuroscience and then conflict resolution, and how those marry to more positively affect the workplace. And really, it stems from helping people know their value, helping people understand that they matter, right? Whether that's in a workplace setting, whether you're on a team of one or a team of 100,
Mm-hmm.
people need to understand their inherent value. And that's where I come from, because of the life experiences we've had, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you start the hits group prior to your brother committing suicide, or was that afterwards you started that?
I started it prior.
Okay.
And that originally was a lot more focused, was kind of mediation, coaching and training on communication,
Right.
basic communication skills, things like that. How to have healthy conflict in the workplace, right? Because a lot of people have this negative connotation for conflict. They think conflict is just,
Right.
button heads and people
Yeah.
getting in fights, and there's a time and a place for that, where even that can be healthy.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for the most part, it's at the basic definition of conflict, it's a difference of opinion, right?
Mm.
So how do you communicate that in the workplace, and build your team up through those conversations?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So that's how it started, right? It was,
yeah.
and that was years prior. And my brother actually had helped me with, some of my branding and all of that, because that was what
Mm.
he did.
Okay.
In
Nice.
fact, I I can't reach it right now, but my updated business cards on the back of it has the old design that he did for
Mm.
mediation coaching and training,
Nice.
and on small print, I put that it was designed by the late Skylar Hitz.
Okay. Nice. What was his name?
Um, Skylar,
Skylar? Okay.
yeah,
How old was he?
it was his 39th birthday.
Oh man, that is rough. Man, is that, and I mean, obviously I think I know, but um after that happened, was that when the kind of the ship turned as far as you and how you dealt
Yeah,
with like your like with your business and different like kind of mindset going forward with that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of that process of, as we were all going through grief, each one of us looking at what we needed. And for me, it was giving back in a different way,
Hmm.
was part of what I needed. And that's where I started really getting into neuroscience and understanding how it can be effective in the workplace, right? For my family and I, part of it was taking a look at what we're doing to build ourselves up to get the help that we need. If that's professional help, then do we have the right fit, right? Do we have the right counselor or therapist to be able to be vulnerable and to keep moving forward? And if not, then we need to get the right person.
Mm.
Um, and that was something that was huge. Part of my brother's story was, um, he really struggled to find the right person, and so he kind of held on to one person that had helped him years ago, but hindsight, as we look at that, really wasn't the right person.
Right.
It was, kind of a mismatch there. And so, we looked at, for example, my wife. We examined her postpartum. Um, After my second daughter, my second kid, my first daughter, when after she was born, my wife had really bad postpartum.
Mm.
Um, and initially, we kind of looked at it, we did some counseling, and she went to a psychiatrist, and unfortunately the psychiatrist was just quick to prescribe something. And I mean, it was like a 5-minute conversation, and
Mm.
was like, well, here's some pills. We're going to throw
Yeah.
those at it. And didn't take that look and approach that really should be taken with anybody. And so we kind of just rolled with it at the time, not knowing any better. And so after everything with my brother, we took a look at how she was feeling, where she was at, and understanding that change that can happen in a family when someone dies by suicide,
Right.
and understanding, she didn't want to go down that road. Um, and so we looked a few different places and people, and found a better fit for her. And so that was one of the things that, as my immediate initial family did in our grieving process, was get the help that we needed,
Right.
for her. Right.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And it's amazing, how people can kind of persevere through things. I think it's kind of in us. It's in our DNA, and it's really just a matter of making meaning of things that happen to you. And because we don't, I mean, to be honest, I anytime people always used to say everything happens for a reason, I would like kind of cringe a little bit, because obviously, there's some things that happen in my life where I'm like, I don't know what the hell was the reason for that, like, but it's
Yeah.
just making meaning of the things that happen, because I think things just happen the way they do, and unfortunately, and not to be, like cold about it, but you just have to deal with it, and you have to live with
Mhm.
it, and it's just making meaning of it. And I felt like, for me personally, it's like when you kind of change that mindset and you make meaning of it, and you say, all right, obviously help people who are close to you, but then, you kind of branched off and you want to help like other people, like people outside of your family, and
Right.
that's the meaning that you made of it. Like, I don't want people to suffer like our family did. So like and to me, I think that's therapeutic. I don't know how, like,
Mhm.
do you look at it that way?
It absolutely is, right? You
Yeah.
have to have a safe, and in my mind, a creative outlet that allows you to process, right? When we have creativity built into our outlets, it allows our body and our mind to process things differently, and much more efficiently, right? People go for walks. My
Mm,
dad, for example, goes on a what he calls a prayer walk every day, and so he is kind of meditating and praying as he's moving, and so that he's kind of getting some of those juices flowing and that creativity, through that mindfulness, and he's been, he'll get back from those, and he'll just hammer out a new article for some outlet, right? Or
right,
or
right,
work on a new book, things like that. But as we find those outlets that are safe and creative and helpful, it allows us to just process in a forward, um, way, right?
mm,
Keeping that momentum going. And so, as you said, yes, we have to deal with it, and we
mm,
have to take it and roll with the punches. But we've got to be able to have the tools to do that, right?
right, right,
And so that's where, I reach out to a lot of people on LinkedIn is where I'm probably most active in terms of social media and things like that.
right,
Um, and if I see something related to suicide, if I see something related to grief or loss, it doesn't matter if I know the person or not. Um, I reach out um, because I've been there,
right.
and I know how hard it is, and I know how much it changes your life, in ways that you would have never imagined, right? Um, and so I show up, and be open and vulnerable with them, because that invites vulnerability, and when we have that, we can heal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's even in my own life, I started gaining strength when I showed vulnerability, and and similar to what you just said, it's like and the same thing when anytime I see anyone posting stuff, especially, guys, losing their fathers, or, and dealing with alcoholism, or depression or anxiety, because that's basically what, I went through. And so you have that empathy where, like, man, I know exactly what this person's going through, and you reach out. And I think that, I mean, I've had people tell me, but I mean, you can see it. Like, it helps so much when a complete stranger reaches out to and someone, right? And
Yeah.
they say, "Hey, how you doing, man?" Or, "Hey, man, I'm sorry you're going through that. Is there anything I can, help support you with, man?" And it's just, you probably just changed that person's life. So I definitely understand what you're saying, and it's a big part of, like, kind of what I do with my brand, and it seems like it's very similar to yours. And do you just strictly work with, like, companies, or businesses, or do you kind of branch out and help the individual person?
uh, Both. So,
Okay.
a lot of what I do is with, um, the leadership of teams.
Okay.
You've got to start there, and you've got to have that buy-in, um, because if you don't have the buy-in from the leader team, from the manager, from the executive, whoever that is, you're not going to have the same lasting changes, right? You might have, um, a band-aid on your culture.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, you
yeah,
might have just kind of a blip on that radar.
yeah.
Um, but I do work with individuals as well, right? And part of my process is, as I work with teams, I'm I'm working with the individuals, right? I'm making sure
Right.
that individually people get the things that they need, and I'm kind of helping create that foundation. Like I mentioned, of the I think most people, if not all, need a spiritual foundation, mental, emotional, and physical, right? For me, those are the three things that have to come together to create a solid, um, foundation for you to give yourself the things that you need, and to show up for others, right? Whether that's a work setting or a family setting or just life in general, you need those things, right? And that's not, to say that you have to believe a certain way, but spirituality is unique. A lot of people will think, oh, I'm not, spiritual, because I'm not religious,
Right.
and that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
Your spirituality is that understanding of your place in the universe, right? Where you're at with whether that's a God, whether that's the universe and just overall feelings, whether that's light and dark. There is innately in every single individual the need for a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where how I approach that, right? Those three pieces create that foundation and allow you to show up, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just a higher power. You just understand a higher power can be anything that you know, deem a higher power. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be a god. You know, it's just like you said,
Something
it's
that's
the
outside
universe.
of self.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and it's spirit. I think it's just really you just have to understand that there's just you kind of like not powerless, but almost in a sense powerless of what goes on. You know what I mean? And you just have to have
Yeah.
that mindset or that spirituality to say like, all right, to have that mental mind or the mindset to just push through and keep going, and you have no just give up control. Like you have no control of what's going to happen. You just can control how you react to it and what you do and how you push forward and the meaning you give it. That's what you have
Right.
control of. That I think
Yeah.
to me is goes all with spirituality and um mindset is huge. But with that I think they go right there. And fitness is a huge thing.
Hmm.
I think it's, man, that can just bring you out of the the biggest fun. I mean, obviously there's things that happen to people where it's just like, man, I couldn't imagine. Obviously your parents like losing a kid to suicide. I couldn't imagine that. And
Hmm.
I got young boys. I see. I'm like, man, that's got to be one of the hardest thing. And I look at my aunt and my uncle, and I'm like, I don't know how they were able to do that. Um, but they did, and obviously your parents did. And I think when you said your dad goes on walks, that like kind of like made me think like, man, it's true. Like when I was in my deepest, darkest days, like what was the first thing like to get me out of everything was self-care. Like how am I gonna love anyone else if I don't even love myself? How am I gonna give out to the world if I can't even give it to myself? And it started with self-care and just getting into the gym. And it was just that was like my first lesson really, where it was like, man, I can't let my feelings dictate my actions. I got to let my actions dictate my feelings. Like once you start owning your actions and going out and like going exercise and getting out, look good, feel good, like your feelings start to like come off of that, you know?
Right. Well, and that's critical, right? Is that movement piece of it, the physical side of it. But your thoughts are important,
Mhm.
right? And so the action helps and it creates that movement and it allows your body to process. But that's where that mental emotional piece of kind of what I look at is so it's critical because you have to understand the relationship you have with your mind, right? You have to understand the relationship that your mind has with your body and how it all just comes together, right?
Yeah.
And there's this reciprocity that occurs as you give yourself what you need. You understand your thoughts and you understand how that translates into what your body is telling you you also need. Then together, that kind of helps
Mm.
lift yourself up, right? Spiritually, physically, emotionally, all of that. And part of that comes, looking at it from a neuroscience perspective. There's some basic things that that we need. We need rest. We've got to fuel ourselves right through
Mhm.
good foods and
Yeah.
healthy fats and things
Proper
like that, right?
nutrition is a big thing. Yeah.
Right. We got to hydrate, and so we've got to make sure that we've got water and I'm a huge fan of electrolytes in your system, making sure that you're hydrating yourself because our body is comprised of so much water
Right.
that if we don't feed it that, it's not going to be able to operate right. And then we have to oxygenate, right? And I'm taking some of these concepts from some of my learning from MIT. That So that oxygenate piece is where that physical, your workouts and all that comes into play,
Right.
as well as kind of that hydration and fuel. And we've got to simplify things. We have to make sure that we have a clear understanding of who we are, where we're at, and where we want to go, right? And so I try and incorporate some of those into what I call kind of my rock star morning routine, right? And I told you a little bit about it and how it's helped me, but the foundation of it is I start my morning with some scripture study and kind of working on that spiritual side, and then I go outside most days to my back porch, and I've got a hammock swing.
Mm.
And for me, that is just like super. It's comfortable, and it's relaxing, and it allows me to kind of work on myself to process what I've been studying, what I've been thinking about, what I've been praying about. And then I work on that kind of visualization of who I want to be, right? So that's kind of what my meditation looks like, is I do some breathing work and making sure that I'm kind of calming down my nervous system, right? Kind of that quick inhale and then a slow exhale, kind of calming things down from a systemic approach. And then I'm reflective,
Mm.
right? And where do I want to be? What do I want the future version of myself to look like? And then I go straight from there. And I've got kind of a pre-workout that I drink that has electrolytes, and it's I've used it for years. It's kind of one of those where it's instantly absorbed, right? So it uses nanotechnology. It's phenomenal. And so I take that and I go right to the garage, and then I work out, right? So I kind of take those three pieces and I put that into my morning routine, and that
Right.
helps set the tone for the rest of the day.
Is it a certain brand that you do, or is it kind of like a
It
homemade
is.
pre-workout type thing?
No, it's a certain brand. I connected with this guy. Oh man, it's probably been 6 or 7 years now. Um, and I had a buddy that had tried it and recommended it, and so I reached out, and back when I had my stores, and was like, "Hey, can I sell this in my stores?"
Yeah.
And he hooked me up, and we've just remained friends. And it's called Nano Hydrate.
Nanohydrate.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and but I love the stuff, and my wife loves it. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of caffeine, BCAAs, electrolytes, and but it for me helps give me energy where I'm not gonna be just like through the roof, like
Right. Right. Yeah.
like just blood pumping. But it's a nice energy, and it's gonna last, and it's kind of even out without the crash. So I love it.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little older now, but obviously, when I was in my 20s, and everyone did the pre-workout, and
Yeah.
some of them, man, whew, you take it and like
Oh yeah.
you feel it in
Oh,
your whole body, like just that
you,
tingly, like, man, what the hell is going on? And really, it was like it
you
didn't
get
even
that
help me.
niacin flush, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's not even like so much it helped me during the workout. It just basically you just like can't sit still. So you're like, I gotta get to the gym
Yeah.
because like this shit is like it's like pins and
And that
needles all over your body. So
yeah,
so
that's
I
what I
don't
love
really
about
do
this, is it doesn't have that effect.
no, I don't really do that pre-workouts anymore, to be honest. I just usually I'll take like an espresso shot, because all my workouts are like pretty much early in the morning. So
Yep.
I would say 90% of my workouts are fasted just because it's
Mhm.
so early and I'm just, it's hard
Yeah,
to
and
get a meal in.
same.
So,
Same with me. Most of mine is that's I'm typically not eating before that,
mm,
because right, I'm getting up at 5:05, and I don't know why that's the time, but that's the
yeah,
time. Um, and something about it not being five, or before five helps, I guess. I don't know,
yeah,
but typically I am fasted as well, and it's just because it's earlier, and I'm not one to eat right when I wake up. Um, and so but one of the reasons that I also take that particular one is because of that hydration factor.
hmm
I'm i'm terrible at drinking water,
yeah,
um, and so for me I have to kind of trick myself into how I can drink more water, right?
hmm
So I'll add that to water, or I'm a big fan of tea, right? I've got some herbal tea that I've been sipping on right here. If there's flavor in it, I am more inclined to drink it.
right, right, yeah,
And that's just me. My wife is so good at drinking water, and my son is so good at it. Me and my daughter, and I don't know about the other daughter yet. She's still a baby, but she's
yeah.
pretty good at it so far. But we're just not great at it, and so I've got to do what I can to hydrate myself.
Yeah, you gotta do these little tricks here and there. I mean, me personally, I'm like I'm pretty good at drinking water. And I know immediately when I'm not getting like decent amount of water in for the day. Like you can, like you
Mhm.
said, like you in those feelings, like in your body, and you can, like it's telling you something. Like I'll know right. I'm like, oh yeah, I need. Whether it's like,
Yeah.
why am I so hungry? Like I just ate before, it's like, oh shit, you know what? I forgot to drink a big glass. And I mean, that's you talk about morning routines. That's mine's a little bit similar. Is like I get up, I actually have a big glass of water. It's not in my bedroom. I leave it out on the kitchen table. Actually, leave it overnight, so it's kind of like room temperature by the time I get
Yep.
up.
Yep. So you can
Um,
digest it better.
yes, and why I leave it outside and not next to my bed because it forces me to get up,
Yep.
get out of the room. And like I said, most of my gym workouts are early in the morning, so um, to get out of the bedroom, one, because I don't want to turn the light on. My wife's, she's in bed, so it forces me to get out,
Mhm.
close the bedroom door, turn the light on in the kitchen. So it's kind of like, all right, time to wake up, pound
Right.
that big glass of water, and
Where's your phone? Where's your alarm?
my alarm is on my phone. It's usually next to my bed, like on the floor.
Yeah, so that's where that was one of the things for the same reasons, right? I started putting my phone in the bathroom.
Okay.
And so it's not by my bed. So that alarm goes off and I have to get up to just turn it off.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would be able to hear it if it was that far away, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if I put it right outside, um, the bedroom into the kitchen, I could probably do it. The only problem is like one of my sons is a pretty light sleeper, so if he hears it and he gets up, then everything's shot to hell.
Yep. But
But
it's finding those systems, right? That's part
yeah,
of that's
yeah,
part of that simplifying process is finding the systems that work for you
right.
to keep building those healthy habits, right? To keep building yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all about staying consistent. Like do what you can stay consistent with. And people always
Right.
ask me about morning routines. What should I do this? I'm like, listen, do a morning routine that you can do every morning, no matter what. Like it doesn't have to be like everyone thinks they have to do like all these things. Like me, like I said, I drink a glass of water, I go in the bathroom, wash up, I get out, I put my gym clothes on, which are all set, outside or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. Everything's already all ready. So I don't have to get
Plan
up
and
and
ready.
think, yeah, I don't have to get up and think like, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? So
Right.
once I put my clothes on, bam, I drop it and do, at least 20 push-ups. Cause I just,
Mm-hmm.
me personally, that helps me like with anything. Like anytime I do anything like little physical, I'm like, all right, here we go. Now I'm ready. And
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, I'll read, I do my AA readings. I have an app on my phone where I read like these three specific ones, and that's the spiritual part, and then it's visioning the kind of person that I want to be, for that day, or that
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, okay, I need to be this today, I have this, whatever it is, and that's the my daily visions. You see, I post it every morning, and
Yeah. We
that
wake up
just
today, we go today.
yeah, and that's it, man. That's my mantra. That's what that's what helps me get up out of bed every day,
Yeah.
and that's basically just that's my routine. That's
Yep.
all that works for me. I'm able to do it no matter what, whether like if I'm getting up early and going to the gym or I have to get up and get my sons ready for school, I'm still able to do that routine.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and I just say whatever you can stay consistent with, whatever works for you, whatever like gets your mind ready for the day, that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Yeah. So it's I think routines are huge. I mean, for me they've been huge, and same with a night routine, which isn't as extent. Basically, it's just sitting down and thinking reflection. You talk about
Mm-hmm.
reflection, and I actually have like a scoring system. I do. It's just five different categories. It's emotional intelligence, like nutrition, physical activity, meaningful relationships, and productivity. And I just basically score myself on a 1 through 5 system. So I
Mm-hmm.
think about everything that I did. Emotional intelligence is just like I had visions for that day, or I had, whatever it is. Like, and emotional intelligence, just don't let anyone or anything kind of knock you off your game, like anyone don't get wild up and be like, get a pistol, you know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
be
yeah.
like, oh, I was supposed to do that. I didn't. So emotional intelligence and, obviously, productivity, that I get everything I needed to do for that day. And usually in the morning, I have like 3 non-negotiables. Like these have to get done today, whether it's like
Mm-hmm.
a personal thing or a business thing, whatever it is. So it's like having that scoring system, like one, it allows me at the end of the day to kind of reflect and see what happened. Like, all right, I was good. I didn't do relationships today. I didn't really reach out to anyone new or you know, in current relationships. So I didn't need to work on that. You just start seeing things that you need to do better. And two, what it does is now I find myself even throughout the day being like, I want to try to get a 5 today in this. Like, what do I have to do to do that? Like, man, I can't slack. I gotta make sure I get my 10,000 steps because like I have in my head what entails a 5, and I'm very hard like grader. You know, like I'm not gonna be like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, 5, 5, 5, 5. Like I don't ever
right.
really get all fives to be honest with you, because
You got to
something
be honest with
happens where I'm
yourself.
like, fuck, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. God damn it. All right, that's a 4. You know, like or you know, like
Yeah.
nutrition. You know, I was really good, except that one. Yeah, I shouldn't have ate all that candy. All right, that's a 3. You know, like, and then it just like throughout the day, man, you just kind of start being like, all right, I want to get 5s. You know, even if you don't get the
Hmm.
5s, at least you keep like pushing yourself every day. So that's just really
Yeah.
kind of part of my. That's all really I do at night. I don't really have a like a night routine, you know, per se. But do you have a night routine, or is it just strictly a morning one?
Um, Mine's mostly morning. We do have some night routines kind of as a family, that just kind of help us all start winding down.
Mm,
So we'll pray with the kids before we lay them down. And we typically will read like a verse of scripture. Sometimes two if we're feeling crazy.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but my kids are 9, 6, and 1,
Mm,
and so you've got to kind of tailor it
yeah,
to
yeah,
where you're
yeah,
at.
yeah.
And so we'll do that. And then we'll lay them all down, kind of tuck them all in. And then my wife and I will typically spend some time together. I often will make popcorn,
Nice.
because my popcorn is super good.
Yeah.
I use a whirly pop. It's like a stovetop with a crank kind of deal. I don't even know how long ago I bought it, but
Oh
it
yeah.
makes popcorn so
How is
good.
that? Is it just like a little thing just for popcorn, or is it like a
Yeah, so it's a pot specifically for popcorn,
okay?
and it's got this crank on it, kind of like an old tractor when you're starting up that engine,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so then it just kind of moves the kernels along on the bottom, kind of rotates it through, but it gives a nice little kind of like a little crunch, I guess.
Yeah.
Just makes really good popcorn. And then I just put some, butter and some sea salt on it, and call it good.
Yeah.
And we'll hang out. We might read, we might watch something. And then from there, we really just kind of wind down your standard stuff. Um, you know, do all your brushing teeth and all that stuff. But then we'll pray together. We'll check on the kids. Um, and we'll kind of do some stretching before bed, and then often during that time we'll kind of reflect on the day. We'll talk about the things that we're grateful for,
Mm,
which helps kind of bring things into perspective, right?
right.
um, Having the intention of gratitude makes a huge difference, I think, in
Oh
one's
yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And so then that's really it. Nothing, as defined. Every once in a while we'll kind of write in a gratitude journal,
Mm,
but nothing too crazy or kind of spilled out like my morning is.
right. Right. Yeah. That's all right. That's good. Sounds like a good night. Definitely, with, with popcorn. Do you have to like continuously crank the thing, or is it just you crank it and then let it go?
um, so for the first couple of minutes, you kind of crank, every 20-30 seconds.
Okay.
Once the kernels start popping, then you continuously crank it until they're done popping, or essentially until you can't crank it anymore, right? Because the popcorn will fill the pot, and then
Yeah.
you can't move the crank anymore, right? So then
Yeah.
it's you're done, and you take it off the heat and you let it cool for a minute or so, and then you throw it in the bowl and put the butter on.
Nice. Sounds
Yeah,
good, man. Yeah, I love popcorn. Definitely,
yeah.
definitely a great snack.
It's
Not
it's
even, and it's not even bad for you, really. Like it's
no, it's great fiber,
yeah,
right? And I think that there's something to be said for doing things um, that bring you joy, right? That doesn't mean just go all out on a box of donuts because it
right,
brings you
yeah,
joy.
yeah,
But you have to find value in the simple things, right? You have to have things that just put a smile on your face, that allow you, that just speak to you, right? Um, you've got to have outlets. You've got to have those small things. You know, for me, popcorn is one of those things. I love popcorn. And it's something that I can do with my family, right? My
Mm,
kids love popcorn, my wife loves, so we can watch something together and have a great time. And it's like, hey, can you make popcorn? And
yeah.
you know, and I enjoy that partly because of what that means, right? It means I'm going to be spending time with my loved ones.
Yeah.
I never make popcorn for myself.
Right. Right.
If it's just me, if my wife's out of town or whatever, I don't ever make popcorn just for me. It's always to share with those that I love, to
Right.
spend time with them, whether we're playing games or watching something. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
That's part of why it's so joyful.
Yeah, you kind of link it together and associate. I mean, it's like that
Yeah.
Sunday nights here, is pizza and ice cream, and that's, I mean, that's my pizza. Pizza is just, man, that's my favorite thing. So I can definitely,
I hear you there. I love pizza, you know, and um, it's funny. My brother that passed, one of his favorite foods was pizza.
yeah.
Um, and he actually lived in New York for a couple of years, and
There
so
you
he
go.
was, you know,
Yeah.
a little bit of a pizza snob, and
Yeah.
you know, so we found a really good New York style pizza here in Boise that we love, and we get, you know, we'll usually get it for sure around his birthday.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a remember it, and then obviously when we feel like a good pizza. But
Yeah.
you know, I think one of the things that has been helpful for all of us in the process of just understanding things and processing in different ways is finding things that allow you to maintain a connection to those that you love who have
Hmm.
passed, right? um, for me, one of the last, I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but one of the last conversations that I had with my brother was about socks. Um, and and specifically, we talked about how he was telling me that Stance had just come out with this, you know, new line called Infinite. Um, in like Infinite, the KNIT, right? Because they're socks, they knit
Yeah. Yeah.
socks.
Yeah.
And and he's like, you got to get some. They're awesome. You know, and he's like, I can hook you up because he did CrossFit, and was like a certified coach,
Mm.
and so he got certain discounts on things. And he's like, I can hook you up. Just let me know what you want. Um, and I had a cart ready to send him, and I was like, you know, I don't want to put that on him, you know, and for him it was no big deal, right? But for me, I felt like I was going to be a burden. And that was one of the lessons that I learned, right? Don't feel like you're a burden to somebody, ever, right? We all need each other.
Yeah.
But for me, one of the things that I've done since is I've essentially replaced almost every single pair of my socks for um, the Stance Infinite socks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a way for me to kind of keep that connection. You know, and it's not like they were my brother's socks, but there's meaning behind it, and it
Right.
allows me to keep that reminder of just being intentional, right? How am I spending my time? Am I showing up for those that need me most,
Right.
right? Um, and that's been something that has helped me just through the process. Having that that tie, as simple as socks,
Right.
right? That
Yeah.
just helps me in my approach with working with people.
Nice. How is everyone in your family doing?
Overall, well,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know, we make more of an effort to get together,
Okay.
um, and you know, we make sure that we're not letting years go by like we had in the past,
Right.
without seeing each other. You know, and making sure that we're staying in better communication and checking in with each other. And it's been just a process, right? We all grieve differently,
Hmm.
you know, and there's different things that, you know, it's been a few years now, and it's, you know, it's been about, you know, 2.5 years or so, since his passing. And randomly there's something that'll just get me right at the heart, just pull on those heartstrings, um and I just allow that to happen, right? Just
Yeah.
be in it,
Yeah.
because you're going to always process different, and there's going to be different things that hit you at different times, and that's part of grief. And that's one of the reasons that I do get frustrated with the a lot of corporate policies of, this is your allotted time to grief, right? That's so limited in vision and so dehumanizing, in my opinion, of how to approach something so delicate like that. And that's part of why, when I'm talking with people and I'm talking with organizations, and making sure that they understand how valuable people are, right? And what it means to be human, and show that humanity,
Mm,
right? And that's, as you show that humanity, that opens up that piece of vulnerability, and it allows each other to recognize that, right? So there's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception, and one of the things that it teaches is that, right, you've got to remove kind of the barriers and show up as a human, right? And a lot of it stems from this philosophy of Martin Buber, that we all are human and deserve that respect from each other as humans,
mm,
and kind of meet each other at that level. And so when something like that happens, you've got to forget yourself and meet them at their level, right? What do you need at this time,
right.
right? How can I be of service to you? Instead of, I need you back in the office on Tuesday, right? I need you to do what you can to still get out this report.
Right.
Um, it just it creates a terrible and dehumanizing culture within the workplace. And that's what I saw time and time again. And one of the reasons that I have the passion that I do for helping people in the workplace in a professional setting, because there's such a stigma around having those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And just like there's a stigma about having conversations about mental health. And we're in such a better place as a society now than we were 10, 15, 20 years ago. But there's still such a stigma, and people don't realize the demographics of you know what people kind of fall, I guess, kind of demographics of highest suicide rates and different things
Yeah.
like that, right? Middle-aged men.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and and that's part of the reason why you're passionate about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and same with me, and a lot of the people that you and I know, right? There is this knowledge that we now have, and how can you not do something about that,
Right.
right? And try and impact the world for a better, and help people to understand that they matter to to whatever higher being there is for them. They matter to themselves. They matter to others, right? The
Right.
world will never be better off without you,
Right.
period.
Yeah. It's just
um
showing their value.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, well, any company would be lucky to have you help them out, and any individual would be lucky to have you help them out. So are you mostly on LinkedIn, or where can people mostly get a hold of you, or talk to you if they need to?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm active there. I've got the hitsgroup.com as well.
Hmm.
There's kind of info about me, some of my services. You can contact me there. You'll see on there some. I believe the background that I've got on here is up on there, as well as another picture of me skateboarding. One of
Nice.
the things that, interestingly, you talked about your past and kind of how it's influenced, right? And we've talked a lot about the
Right.
story of my family, and one of the things that's impacted me over the years is skateboarding. As a skateboarder and kind of this rebel, or whatever you want to call it in society. But what's been interesting is how skateboarding has helped me to connect with people in different ways. It's one of the few sports that you do individually, but can still do collectively, right?
Mm.
And so it's one of those things that has helped me in my work to help people understand the importance of the individual and how that relates to what they're doing, on their greater team,
Mm.
and or in their efforts or mission or whatever it is that they're doing. And so it's one of those things that for me has been a way to connect with people, and one of those life lessons that oddly enough came from skateboarding.
Nice.
And so it's one of those things that, I try and teach my kids skateboarding. I've got I think it was once a bookshelf. It's now kind of a house is
Yeah.
probably 10 or 15 skateboards in there for me and my
Yeah.
family. And the skateboards that you see were actually my brother's.
Okay.
And so, there's meaning of why those are up on my wall,
Right.
and all of that, right? Just those small connections and those pieces,
Mm.
and drawing upon your experience to see what you can learn, right? Like you said, for you, you don't believe that everything has a reason for happening.
Right.
You've got to create meaning,
Right.
and so that meaning comes from the life lessons and how we apply those, and how we take our own personal experiences to learn something from them, and then help others that need to hear whatever it is that you have to share and whatever you've
Yeah.
learned.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. And man, this was great. I appreciate you coming on, man. This is a lot of fun, and we'll definitely keep talking and stay in touch in the future, because we've had some couple good conversations already. So
We
um
have, yeah.
yeah. So I definitely want to stay in touch with you, and
No, this has been great.
yeah. So yeah, like I said, man, thanks for coming on.
Keep it, brother.
All right. I will talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, man.